Welcome to the Mason Guard Show. Unscripted, uncensored, unapologetic. Hello and welcome once again to the Mason Guard Show. Thank you very much for tuning in. This episode is sponsored by Generic Product. Generic Product is always there for your house cleaning needs. Use discount code MasonGuard at checkout to get 30% off. Alright guys, so this is going to be a little bit of a different episode. If you guys have been listening to the other ones that we've done, you've been hearing us talk about movies a lot. Today we're going to break away from movies for a little bit. We're going to talk about some things that we've been hearing and seeing in the news and whatnot that have kind of caught our attention. So thanks for joining us and hope you guys are along for a little ride this evening. So, to start off, Ed, one of the things that caught my attention this week was it seems that NBC is going to be starting a streaming service in most likely 2020. And it just got me thinking about how many streaming services there are now and where the future of this looks to lie. And I mean, I'm no expert. I'm just someone who certainly consumes a ton of media and generally through streaming services. So, again, I was just looking into it. And I mean, whether you've got Netflix and Hulu and Crave and I think Warner Brothers has one coming, or HBO is doing another one. There's the Criterion one now. Yep, Apple's announced theirs. You got the Prime. The Disney one is coming in, I think, October of this year. And at what point does the value of the streaming service kind of, flip? Because that's always been the advantage of this, is all this, content at your fingertips for a fraction of the price of cable. But, if all of these streaming services get fractured and, suddenly you've got 40 different ones to choose from, each costing, anywhere from $8 to, $15 a month, suddenly you're paying more than your cable bill again, and, it's a whole different story. So, what about you? How are you with streaming services? What are your takes?
So, as pretty much everyone on the entire planet, I subscribe to Netflix. I think when we talk about streaming, it's really interesting, and you have to go back to, the beginning of all this, right? And for me, this all started with Napster, right? Okay, yeah. And I like to bring up Napster because that's when, for me, and I know that a few people were ahead of the curve on this, this is when all media content became available at your fingertips.
You had the choice.
That's right. Yeah. There was nothing that you were forced to pay for anymore. After Napster, if you didn't have Napster, and I apologize, I don't believe in stealing content, but when I was a teenager and I got Napster, I downloaded everything. Everything. I had every piece of music, stuff that I never listened to, never would listen to. I needed to have that album.
And probably about 100 viruses at the same time.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's when sort of Norton Securities, really became an important part of my life. Yeah. So Napster quickly turned into programs like LimeWire and BitTorrent, and things of this nature, right? This is when media became basically open source. It became basically, if you could achieve it, if you understood the internet, you could have and watch everything. At the time, for me, cable became an outdated product. It just didn't make sense for me anymore because, at that time, there wasn't like the ability to record.
Right,
and there was no PVR, and soon after their PVR came out, and which I believe is the only reason cable still exists in the form that it does, because hours after a TV show aired, I could download it and watch it. Mm-hmm. And we did, and we downloaded absolutely everything, and that stuff's all gone because I'm sure there's if you're like me, you probably have a hard drive sitting somewhere you lost in your life that has 5 seasons of every show you ever watched on it. So it's interesting. So, and then it progressed to the point where I don't need to even keep stuff anymore because it's readily available on the internet. You don't even need to download now. You can just stream everything. And then Netflix happened.
I want to talk briefly about the birth of Netflix because again, for those of you who aren't aware, like Netflix today in no way resembles what Netflix started out as.
It was a competitor for
Blockbuster.
Yeah. So you could order the videos, so you didn't have to go and rent them anymore. You could just select them on a list, and they would send them to your house,
delivered to your mail.
Yeah. And obviously, everybody knows what Netflix is today. But it's still an interesting comparison because tons of people don't even use Netflix at this point. They just use Android boxes and different links on the internet that allow you to watch whatever you want at any given moment. All that content is out there. Now, do I think that it's fair or legal or is it fair to creators to be able to do that? No. And that's why I subscribe to Netflix. I believe in paying for the content and I respect the hard work that goes into these things.
Sure.
So that's why I subscribe to Netflix and a couple and Prime as well.
Absolutely. For me, I think one of the most interesting things when I was again doing some research for the story was in 2018 the number of subscriptions actually passed the number of cable subscribers. So like we've now actually hit that saturation point where more people have pulled away from cable and are moving towards this streaming service. It's 613 million online video subscription services in 2018 versus 556 cable subscribers, right? And I mean that's not even a small difference even between those two. That's still 60 million different people who are doing that. So again, just the fact that these continue to grow. And their popularity, and you just think, I was reading a story where Blockbuster was actually approached way back when to be like, hey, why don't you join in with us on this streaming idea? It'll be great. And Blockbuster laughed at them and thought, people aren't going to want to do that. They like a brick and mortar store.
No, we need a partnership with Fido. That's going to carry us through.
And now, Netflix is absolutely enormous. And is in I think 70% of American households, and there's one Blockbuster store left in existence. Shows just what happens if you don't keep up with the times. But again, I just don't know where we're going to go and where, are we going to see content stretch so thin that even, the question is, what's the value of staying with any of these one services because they're not putting out shows? I mean, Netflix is the only one who's been able to reliably put out, solid content. Amazon's had a few hits here and there, but not everything's really gone over well. I mean, Disney Plus, sure, there's no way that fails because it's got the entire Disney catalog behind it. But
yeah, I think that you want to talk about that, right? Like what Disney has been able to do in the last few years in their acquisitions is crazy.
It's scary.
And what that means for a streaming content service, it's going to be hard not to subscribe to Disney. I'm a parent. I have a 1.5-year-old. I have another one on the way. And let me tell you how devastated my wife and daughter were when they took Moana off of Netflix. It ruined a couple days of our life until we had to go buy a copy of that movie because apparently my daughter needs to watch it every day.
You're welcome.
Exactly. Moana. I've watched that movie probably 600 or 700 times now in different pieces. It's so funny because you're able to actually skip to the songs on Netflix. So they have coding that allows you to play specific songs, which is
wow.
crazy. Because they know what people are doing. Yeah. And, if you've watched the movie 80 times on your Netflix account, they know you've got a child who's watching this over and over again. But I don't want to stray away from Disney because I think it's important to talk about all of the Disney films and what they've acquired. And one of the pieces I want to talk about is their acquisition of Fox. Right?
Huge.
So that means that on Disney's streaming service, not only are you going to have all of Disney's everything, right? Pixar, you've got every single Marvel product.
Yeah.
Then Star Wars. So Lucasfilms, but then they have all the repertoire of everything that was Fox, right? So you've got Futurama, Family Guy, Bob's Burgers, The Simpsons,
Yep, the X-Men, X-Files.
Yeah,
which I think was a big one for Netflix for a while. One of their top shows they were getting. It was X-Files, and they're going to lose that one.
Yeah, so like a lot of what you would expect to see on Netflix, like my Netflix account basically is for watching The Office over and over again. Now Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I've mentioned those two shows before, but those are both going to go over to Disney. Yeah. So like anybody who watches those shows in the background around repeat, you're watching those. All the reality TV shows, all the cooking shows that are with them, Hell's Kitchen, MasterChef, that's all going to be on Disney now. The entire repertoire of Fox is going to be there, and that's enough content to make people want it. Yeah. Because they want to watch those shows. Who doesn't want to have all of The Simpsons available to them at any point, right? So I think that of the future of this, Disney has a foothold that's going to be hard to compete with. And I think that you're going to start to really see people straying away from the content that Netflix is developing to have the repertoire.
Just the familiarity Disney that comes with the Disney library.
Yeah, so I'm really interested to see when that one comes out. I know you mentioned it's coming out in October of this year. I don't know what the price is going to be, but if they're even comparable to...
I think I was reading $8 was the estimated price. That might have been US.
Yeah, per subscription or whatever.
But I think, and again, for me, that then raises the question is, are we going to be either flooded with choice and have 80 of these different services to choose from, or is it going to be the big daddies, the Netflix, the Hulu, the Disney Pluses, that just swallow up and fight amongst each other for the others?
Just to license
how does,
everyone else.
Again, one of the ones that's coming out, or it's out right now fairly recently, is this DC universe.
Right.
And again, I look at that and go, the DC films haven't done great in the theaters. They've performed, but they haven't done what Marvel's done. So how is that service going to hold up against the might of a giant like Disney, which not only has the Marvel movies, which have outperformed the DC movies, but has, again, the rest of what you just said, all of that behind it? Who's going to subscribe to this DC service for the 15 movies that are on it? I just... How does that company survive?
I don't think it'll compete. I think that it won't last long before it just licenses to Netflix or licenses to Disney, and I think that's where their place is. Even Netflix, a lot of their focus has been creating new content, actually Netflix content, which is good. You know what I mean? A lot of it is quality content.
There's some great Netflix originals
exactly
out there.
So I think that in the future you may see Netflix even stop ceasing to exist and actually become a producer of content because it can't compete with these big names who are potentially coming up. And at the same time, you've got YouTube, which is in a really interesting place right now too.
Very true.
So
very true.
You can't forget about what YouTube Red is,
originals,
right? So they have some of their own original content, and a lot of people don't see any of this YouTube content because it's YouTube and they don't think that paying $3 for it is worth, right?
And some people don't even know it exists.
Exactly.
Literally.
So and YouTube is amazing for content, and what the amount of content that goes through YouTube is crazy on its own, right? Mm-hmm. But does YouTube start looking for those licenses, right? You got Google behind YouTube, right? When Google gets Google,
where does Google fall into this?
Their only interest at this point is maintaining that YouTube, and I don't even think it's a focus because you can see that it's not really pushing yet.
Yeah, no, if you listen to the creators on YouTube these days, certainly there's a lot of people feeling that YouTube is pulling away from supporting creators in that same regard, unless they're behind the paywall, and that's where you kind of get the support. So, again, I thought it was an interesting topic, and it'll be something that I am going to personally be monitoring as we move forward, because I think there's a couple of different ways that, as I say, it could go, where we're either completely inundated with all these services, and none of them are amazing. Or again, I think you end up with 3 or 4 big giants of streaming. Which again, if it moves to that, personally, I think I'm going to be happier because that's going to be cheaper for me to have access to most of what I'm looking for. But again, the way things are going, it's hard not to see it. splitting into just so many different factions.
Yeah, so I mean, one other piece that we didn't even touch on is sports, right? Which is the reason that I shamefully still have cable.
I think it's the only.
You know?
It and the news are pretty much the only things that I think keep cable services still running.
Exactly.
At this point in time.
But with that said, the NFL is no longer outside of that market. They've got that zone, right? They're actually involved with a streaming service
Right.
that worked really well. So this in Canada, this was the first year that it went that way. The price was about $120 for the entire season. You had every single game. And every single game was recorded, so you could go back and watch them from the whole season, which was pretty incredible.
That's pretty amazing.
When you're someone like me who can't always watch every single game, and I like to watch every single game. That's just
yeah, I know. I've spent a few Sundays here.
Exactly. Yeah, I
you.
need to watch all the games because I'm crazy like that and a little obsessive, and my wife hates it. But that was interesting. It's just a shame that I'm not able to get all the sports on that platform yet.
Mm-hmm.
If I could get the hockey, the basketball, and because it does actually include a lot of the European football, soccer, a lot of those that I watch as well are already on DAZN. So you get cricket, you get boxing, MMA in there already. So it'll be interesting to see if that platform does start to take over the sports one, because I do pay for that, and now that I'm racking up the bill that I'm paying for different content, now I realize I'm paying a fortune, but I'm willing to.
Yeah.
So I'm the target market of these people, because if I want something, I will pay the $12 a month, and I'll set it up on direct debit and never thinking about it again.
But then what happens if the NBA goes, you know what? Forget that. It's great that you've got this, but we're going to do it ourselves. And they run their service, and then the Major League Baseball follows their example, and then Major League Soccer follows their example, and suddenly, again, now we're dealing with you have 12 different sports subscription services. So
I think it's interesting.
It's just a dangerous road to walk, I feel.
Yeah, and then you've got interesting platforms for how you can watch these different apps now. If you're like me and you also subscribe to the video game world, you've got a system that's capable of doing that. Like my PlayStation currently runs my Netflix. It runs my DAZN app, and it runs the Prime as well. So I'm able to use a system that's optimized for exactly what all these companies want. So it'll be interesting to see what this progression is in a few years. But I think that Disney is a force to be reckoned with, and I think that Google, as soon as they pull their figure out, because there's no way they're not.
Yeah, wherever they dip into their pool, that's certainly going to make a splash for sure. Mm-hmm. All right, great stuff. Now I know, Ed, you had a topic that you were talking a little bit about before the show, but if you want to maybe go into your thoughts on, I think you said the Guinness Book of World Records.
That's right. So I think it's funny because you can have these conversations about world records, and should this topic even exist? Should we even talk about this right now? Probably not, but
it's super trendy.
I'm going to anyways, because I always find them interesting. I've been looking at some of over the past few weeks, some interesting records that were actually set, and I want to share these with you, Scott, and I want you to sort of guess at some of these numbers.
If it's the fingernails guy, I've already seen it.
Okay, no, so we're not going to do fingernails. We're going to do new sort of records that are set, and this will probably be a running topic, and I'll tell you why when we get through this. But so one of the records that was set over this past month was a back padding record. Padding of someone's back. Yeah, okay. We need, as a human race, to keep track of how many people are patting people's backs, because the future depends on that. So
now, is this one singular person patting and total number of pats for one person, or collective group pat?
So this is a group back patting record.
Okay. And each person counts as one pat,
that's right.
Not multiple
That's
pats.
right. It's more how many people. So this was actually set in Ireland by a group of students. So they now hold the current world record. This was set in May. How many people do you think it takes to set the record for back patting?
I mean, in reality, I feel like 5. How many collective group backpacks are there. I don't think it would take any more than 5 to really set the record, but to really be impressive, I don't know, 500?
So the new world record for back padding is 824 people. Now, 824 students in Dublin formed a chain of people patting each other on the back for the new Guinness World Record.
Okay, a chain. I was going to say, does that mean they had like 1,648 because they had to have one person
double back pat? No.
One person to pat and one person to receive the pat to the chain. That makes a bit more sense.
Yeah. So that was an interesting one that was set in May this year. So the next one that was set in May, now this is an interesting one because, and it's going to go into the topic. And the reason I bring this up is I find these ridiculous. I find the Guinness World Record, I find it ridiculous that it exists. But it doesn't stop me from reading it when it comes out and being interested in what these records are, because I always feel like maybe I could do better. Like, do I know 825 people who could get together and do some backpatting? I mean, it would be interesting to hold that title. I just don't know if that's the one.
Once this show grows, we're going to take that title down.
So, I mean, maybe that's not the one we should start with, because there are some easier options, I think. But I'm going to say right now, the Mason and Guard show will hold a Guinness World Record at some point. I'm putting that out there right now. I'm saying that in the future we will hold one, and we can talk about that more.
Squad goals.
That's right. That's right. So the second one that I want to talk about today
Back to the guessing mode.
The Guinness World Record for spinning a cushion on your finger.
Spinning a cushion on your finger.
That's right.
So I guess is the duration. I can't even believe this is real. I feel like I don't even have a basis for what would be impressive. Like, I mean, again, for me, 10 seconds is probably pretty impressive, but that's, I mean, to get like someone to be like, man, that really is a feat that we should record in a book, that's got to be over an hour. There's no way that's not less than an hour.
So you actually shot way over. So this is one of those examples where I'm like, really? So I've never really. I mean, have I spun a cushion on my finger probably in my life? Yeah, probably. I've probably done the cafeteria tray spin. How long? 10 seconds would probably be a pretty good feat.
Right.
But the previous world record for this was set at 15 minutes and 7 seconds. That was previously. The current one that was set this month was actually 18 minutes and 14 seconds. Now, I don't know why we need a record of this, but do you think that with some practice you could do more than 18 minutes and 7 seconds? 18 minutes and 14 seconds?
I mean, absolutely, right? I think if you got the right
cushion, right?
Because once you can go, there's no... there's nothing to say. You have to stop, right? Like until you screw up. So I mean,
and it's that skill, and it's like
find the right pillow.
We have an image of this here of this guy doing this. It's a pretty big cushion. It's not like it's.
He sit up comfy.
Yeah, he's in like a yard. He looks like he's in like a, like a Walmart. Maybe? Yeah, something like that, right? So he's sitting there just spinning a cushion, probably on his break. I'm imagining, but 18 minutes, and now this guy goes down in history, and I just feel like maybe that could be my title.
Plus, Walmart probably fired him for going 3 minutes over his break.
That's right, or docked his pay. All right, the next one I want to talk about. See, this one's interesting because this one seems like it's a standard that people are competing at. It's not that you're just like, okay, see how long I can go. Mm-hmm. So the next one is for popping 200 balloons. Okay.
So this one, so there's a finite number then.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So
200. So
how long do you think that, now I'll give you some context. These balloons are lined up on a wall. So I would imagine there's 100 in the top sort of row and then 100 beneath them.
Okay.
I'll give you some insight. He did go from one side to the other on the bottom row, and then back.
And then back. Okay, not doing the up, down,
Yeah,
up,
no,
down.
he didn't do up, down. So
okay.
If you're working out trying to use the Lean 6 model, which some of you may know about, he did remove all waste and found the fastest way for him to do it. So how long do you think that it took this gentleman to pop 200 balloons?
All right, I'm going to be optimistic again because it's got to be pretty dang impressive. So let's say we're looking at half a second a balloon maybe. So, just under 2 minutes.
Just under 2 minutes. So you're way off. He was able to achieve this in 14.77 seconds.
What?
So this guy is wicked fast. And his form is incredible. Like, he's sort of spearing as he runs, popping these balloons. It is pretty impressive. I mean, and I say pretty impressive when we're talking about popping balloons, right? He does appear to have sort of like a pin or maybe some sort of pencil, which is probably super sharp. I would imagine this takes some practice, but this one actually impressed me because I don't know that I could ever do it faster than 14 seconds.
I'm just thinking like that's like a 50-meter dash, and just to get from one end to the other.
Yeah, so
no,
I mean,
no, not a chance.
But that was an
that
interesting
guy can
one.
have that one.
Exactly. I'm not even gonna. David. His name is David Rush. So he actually holds. This is what it's annoying about this guy. He holds more than 100 Guinness World Records. So this guy's committed his life to this. So if this guy's got 100 of them, I want one. I want us to have at least one.
I think so.
So the next one I wanted to talk about super quickly before we move on is this one is a breakfast in bed world record. So this is the largest group of people all having breakfast in bed at the same time. Now, just to give you an idea, the previous record was held in China. This one is now taken in South Africa. They took the record from China. So just ballpark me. How many people do you think you need? And what's interesting to me is do you just put out an ad and be like, hey, do you want to be a part of this? Which if I saw the ad, I would again want to be a part of this because I do want a record. I want my name on that list, and it is now a new life goal. So how many people do you think?
Again, I don't even have a base context to work with on this, but
I think it's
again,
you guys.
if anything, it makes just an interesting question is, does every single person get their name in the book, or is it like, the organization that ran it? But I don't know. Ed, I seriously have no context for this. Another 200.
200. Okay, so the previous world record was 418 people. This group of South Africans crushed that record with 574 people eating breakfast in bed to take this record.
Is this like in one hotel? Like, is this one giant ass bed? Like, how do you determine there's probably 80 other people that were doing it around the world at the same time. Do they not get credit too?
So this record was actually, I think this was a promotion by a restaurant that actually went after the record and gave these people all breakfast in bed. Tons of people, a lot of families, children were involved, and they set up all these beds, all these cots, and people actually got delivered their breakfast. All right. So I think as a marketing stunt from a business, I think that this one is very creative. I think it was an interesting idea. Now, those are the ones I wanted to talk about in May. Now, if you know the Guinness World Records, you know that some of them are ridiculous and some of them are interesting. How many watermelons you can smash with your head in a minute. If you haven't seen...
and then I'm out.
Okay. You'd be very surprised if you haven't ever...
I've actually seen that video. That's why I literally watched that and went, I'm out after one.
My favorite part of those are the ones that don't break on the initial hit, and that's pain. That's pain. And this guy's got brain damage now from this for sure.
Why do you talk the way you do? Watermelon
smashing. I am the world record holder. And then what happens if you do that? You really risk your health and life and remembering that you hold that record, I think. And then what if someone beats you by one? And then do you have to do it again? Do you have to
rise to the challenge
to defend your title of the watermelon head smasher?
I feel like you, especially if it's just by one, you've got to go back.
You
for
could
that.
have done one more.
I'm coming back.
If that one that didn't break I had a got, this wouldn't have been a problem. And then what if you fail? You signed
Oh.
out. So the process for actually doing this is contacting the Guinness World Record, and paying to have them review your submission to see other people who hold the title, and then paying for an adjudicator from the Guinness World Records to come out to view you doing it. Now, a lot of these are set in Europe. In England, a lot of them are held in England. So I don't know what the process for like getting someone to come. Like, we live in Canada, so having an adjudicator
put him
come
up
to
in
us.
my apartment.
That's right. Just invite him and be like, yeah, fly over here. I would imagine.
I got an air mattress.
I would imagine that there's people adjudicators all over the world.
You'd imagine
for
they would
these.
have to be, right?
I know that like putting in a submission, if you want like the speedy application, and to get a response within 12-week time does cost $800. So you're paying a price for these. So I'm going to put up a Kickstarter. I'm just kidding. Eventually, I personally, to hold that title, $800 doesn't seem like too much money for me. I'm prepared to pay that price. I just haven't decided for sure what title that I want to hold. But I will in future share my research on these as new titles do come up. I'll let you know as I'm watching them, and let you know which one we're going to strive to achieve. We may need to practice some of these. I'm going to start spinning a cushion tonight because I believe that 18 minutes is achievable.
And you guys let us know out there if you see a record that you think is attainable for us. You shout us out somewhere on the internet, and we'll look into it absolutely, and maybe make you a part of our world record attempt. So.
Just to give you some insight, my skills do include sitting in a chair, talking on the phone, and talking about movies. So if there's anything in those areas that you find a record on, those are
limited skill set.
That's where my real assets lie. So I thought I would share that.
All right, fantastic. So there we go. Let us know what record you think that we should attempt as we go forward with this show. All right, now time for a very special segment that I like to call Story Time with Ed. And you see, my man Ed here has lived a very interesting life, and he has had quite a few stories come his way over the time. And so we're going to take a moment out of every few episodes, and we're going to catch up with a great story from our man Ed. So Ed, hit us with a little story.
Okay. I actually want to talk about something that happened to me this week.
Oh.
Just to share this with you and let you know how I feel about this. So as I mentioned, I basically talk on the phone for a living. I take dozens and dozens of phone calls every day, and often I'm not doing much on those phone calls. I'm just listening to other people talk. But so in one of these situations where, it was going to be a lot of listening to some other people talk, I decided that, for the first time in the last little while, we had some nice weather here in Ontario. So I decided I'm going to take this phone call outside. So I go outside. It's a sunny day. I'm sitting there. Finally, it comes to my time to talk about 30 minutes into this phone call, and I start sharing my piece. And as I'm doing that, a bird shits on me. That's right. So there's two things that I want to say about this, and I wasn't very happy. But when you share that a bird just shit on you, as uncomfortable as that is, what do you think people say to you?
I imagine they just laugh, similar to how I did.
Right. So the majority of people, yes, of course, they start off with laughing, but then it quickly goes into a speech about how they believe that is lucky.
Oh, yes. I've heard this as well. And
so, funny enough, in my life, as someone who's told this is lucky, this isn't the first time I've been shit on by a bird.
By a bird.
Yeah,
yeah. Just to clear that up.
Yeah, this is not the first time. So I experienced this once before when I was younger. I got shit on. I thought someone threw something at me that time, and I was like looking around, nobody did, and I realized I'd been shit on by a bird. This time, I shared it with some people, and everybody told me that I was lucky. And let me tell you, there's nothing lucky about this. When someone gets shit on in the future, please stop telling them that you think that was lucky. It's not comforting. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't. So I tried. I bought a lottery ticket that day, and I didn't win. Hence why I'm still here and not like on a yacht. The second thing that I want to bring up is, why is bird shit white? Now, I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you can let me know. Maybe someone who's listening is clearly like, well, it's white for this reason. But I'm pretty sure, like, are birds all perpetually, like, just dying? Like, are they all terminally ill? Because I'm pretty sure that if I shit and it was white, I would be dying. And that's what I wanted to share about that. I don't understand, and I just thought I would put that out there.
That's a really good question. I honestly have no no basis for that. I certainly don't. I've never been shit on in my life. I guess I've been lucky in that regard.
Well, or maybe unlucky.
But, I got to imagine that literally the only reason that people say that it's lucky is literally because it's the only way to comfort someone who has just literally received feces air delivered to their face or shoulder area.
It was shoulder area for the record,
thank goodness at least for that.
Still super unfortunate.
Well, that's fantastic, and I know. Again, I know you're not exactly comfortable with germs.
No,
on a good
not,
day. Yeah. So you add that into the mix. And,
I'm a no-touch human now, in pretty much everywhere.
How did you react in that moment? And did suddenly everyone who was on this phone call know what had happened?
So I tried to recover because I obviously lost my train of thought, and I started to speak again, and then I just stopped and was like, you know what, I'm just going to share this with the group. We got like 20 people on this phone call. I'm like, I just need to let everybody know that a bird just shit on me, and there was a lot of laughter, and then a lot of the comments of "you're a lucky guy." I'm like, I don't really feel that way about this, but then I carried on with my piece of the presentation.
Well, fantastic. All right, well, that's I think that's a great little story time with Ed. And that's I think going to be a great way to actually wrap up this episode. We've hit our time here, so we hope you guys enjoyed that. We want to thank you guys very much for listening to our pilot episodes that we have that are all up right now, all 4 of them. The plan right now is that we are going to be returning in July with weekly episodes, starting out with 1 a week, and then depending on how much you guys like this and the feedback that we get, we hope to continue to expand that more and more. So let us know, guys, what you guys think. Give us your feedback, show us your support, subscribe, do whatever it takes, because again, we really want to go along with this ride for you guys. So let us know what you want to talk about, whether it's topics or what movies from the past that you want us to review. That we'll certainly add them to the list. So once again, guys, for Scott Mason and my good buddy Ed Guard here, thank you very much for listening to the Mason Guard Show, and we will catch you in July.